Okay, one last thing to do and we'll get
The difference.
started.
You have to turn it on. Or I thought.
Okay, well, why don't we get started? Thank you all for being in attendance. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. I'll continue to try to work on those as the meeting progresses. But yeah, I'd like to get started with tonight's HPRC meeting.
This is Megan here. I will call the meeting of the August 17th, 2021 HPRC meeting to order at 5:22 p.m. Diane, will you do roll call
Megan Vickers,
here?
Lisa Manifold. Here. Chris Hain,
Here.
Tim Hain,
Here.
Rick Wells, Patty Tyler.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is to approve the minutes of July 20th, 2021. I did not get minutes. Did anyone else get minutes?
I didn't get minutes.
No,
I don't think we got minutes.
no, we did not.
Okay. Then we don't have minutes to approve. Diane, can we put that on the agenda for next month then to do minutes for last month's meeting and this month's?
Sure.
Okay. And then next is new business public hearing. First, we will do the certificate of appropriateness for the revised landscape improvement plans at the Carnegie Library at 219 14th Street. And I believe, Jared, you will be giving that report. Is that correct?
I will kick it off and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Okay, do I need to open the public portion of the meeting at 5:23?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Before you this evening is basically it's an update to something you've seen earlier that previously did receive a COA. I can share my screen here so that we'll have something to look at. So there's two different plan sets that are in the packet. There's the revised plan set and then the previously approved plan sets. So I'll let Chris get deeper into the discussion, but the main points are some changes have been proposed, removal of a sidewalk and a couple other items on the site. With that, I'd like us to consider the items in which are the findings of facts and the requirements for which to approve a COA in our review, which are also found in the report. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris.
Okay, yeah, Tim is here with me too.
Oh, and Tim.
Yeah, we just wanted to let everyone know that we did walk the site with Andy, John Bordoni, and Libby Kaplan. This was following the decision that the city would pay for the site improvements. So we walked the site with them and we decided that the Hose House Plaza needed to be expanded. There was on the former plan a strip of lawn along the west side of that plaza. And we decided to expand that area so that it could be used for events as well as for the display of hose carts. and other things. And also, Andy wanted to add some bollards down at the end of the plaza because they do have issues with people using that area for parking. In addition to that, we did add a curb along the west side of that plaza, again, to discourage people from driving onto that plaza. The west side of that plaza is an asphalt paved area, and that will remain. There was also a storage building, a stage, and a walkway over on the northwest corner of the library park. And it was determined that really that was not needed. And so that was eliminated. We did retain, of course, the World War II memorial. And I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Tim, can you think of anything else?
No, they wanted to add that small semicircular planting bed in front of the existing World War II memorial.
Right.
And we showed that on our drawings, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so we really kind of simplified the design. Following our meeting with the city and Libby, we did submit our drawings to the State Historical Fund. Since they have an easement on this property, we wanted to make sure that they would approve these changes. And so we did submit them and they were approved. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. And actually, these documents are being bid currently. So I know that the city is wanting to get started on this work. So anyway, that kind of wraps up, kind of summarizes what we've done.
All right, thank you, Chris. HPRC members, any questions or comments about this? Are we ready to close the public portion of the meeting to have our discussion?
Ask if there's any public comment.
Oh, sorry. Is there any public comment? Okay. We'll close the public portion of the discussion about the library landscaping at 5:28 p.m. for the HPRC to have our discussion. I will open that up to the HPRC. Very weird not being able to see any of you, by the way. Okay. Anything?
I have a question. What, how was the determination made that the stage and some of the other buildings that are going to be removed, how was that determination made?
I believe that came from Andy, didn't it? Or from-
Yeah, and I think from Libby also. I think what we heard was that I think the police department was concerned about that area because they thought people might, street people might hang out over there. And I think it was just determined they didn't really need that stage after all. They're going to be able to use that Hose House Plaza and also the library plaza for events. So it was really the library and the city that determined it was not required.
Okay, that wasn't
So-
clear in what you guys explained or it wasn't in the document, so I just was curious.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, try your video now.
I just did. It didn't work. Oh,
Ah, victory.
Yay!
Sorry about that. Okay.
And that I think Chris, that was correct. I remember hearing something about security concerns with that stage a long time ago. So any other things? Are we ready to make a motion to
I just have
approve?
one thing to say, and it's not so much like a question, but it's more, when we initially discussed this, I was all in favor of moving the World War II memorial to the library. And after, I think it went through sites and facilities and the Friends of the Library, and they determined that they wanted to keep it. And I have to say, I'm glad that they did that, because I think moving that would have been the wrong choice. And initially I was like, yeah, let's put this where it's going to be, safe and out of the elements. And I really like I talked to the guys that were doing the repair while they were doing it, and they did a really nice job with it. Like, that was very well done.
Yeah, that was Tim McDonough from Silver Plume.
Yeah,
Who
he
did
did a
the
good
work.
job with it.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
And actually, there are going to be some revisions made to the backside. Do you recall seeing the exposed conduit, and there's some electrical boxes with a photo cell and that sort of thing. They're making some sheet metal kind of covers that hide all that, and that's going to really improve the look.
I
Especially,
think so.
Yeah, kind of
so-
clean it up on the back.
yeah.
So, and they're gonna paint it too. They're gonna leave the red, white, and blue, I believe, on the top. But the rest of the enclosure is going to be painted the same color as the windows on the library, which is kind of a warm white,
Yeah, kind of a cream color.
just to kind of, coordinate with the library.
Oh,
So,
I think that's good. No, I can admit when I'm wrong, and I was like, no, let's move this thing somewhere else. And I'm actually glad that they took a step back and decided otherwise, because I think it's a better choice.
it looks good.
Does anybody want to make a motion one way or the other?
I'll motion to approve the COA as put before us.
Second?
We have to recuse.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't. We have to recuse ourselves because we're involved in the design.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to our second item of new business, which is the proposed rehabilitation of hose house number 2 at 600 Colorado Boulevard. And again, is that you, Jared, who's going to give us that?
I will start it off again, and I will turn it over to the Haynes. Before you this evening is a proposed rehabilitation of hose house number 2 located at 600 Colorado Boulevard. It is a historic structure that is in need of some repair. The city is proposing, is working with the Haynes on this proposal for rehabilitation. We did want to take a look at the criteria for approval, and we feel that it meets that criteria. This project, there is one option found in the plans, which is whether or not to include the man door in the front. Staff felt that man door was appropriate to keep because it's not something that's extremely new. It's still, we felt, in that period of appropriateness, and it was something that still had some historic nature to it. But that being said, I'd like to turn it over to the Haynes for their presentation.
Let me jump in. We opened this part of the meeting at 5:33. Okay, go ahead.
You want to talk about it?
Okay. Well, I have.
Yeah, here's.
I've got mixed emotions about this. I understand the historical aspects of that man door that was added. However, the fact that it wasn't done in a workmanlike manner bothers me a lot. It's not. It wasn't done by a craftsman. It was done by someone who wasn't skilled, and it's not a very, very high quality modification to the original doors. And so.
Yeah, and we went over and we really took a close look at those doors, which is why we put that document together that you see on the screen, because we really wanted to just illustrate the existing construction.
So it's rather crude. And you can see on the backside, they've kind of scabbed on plywood and a 2x6 along the style on the the hinge side of the door. And so I just don't think that the integrity of the door is very good. You know, if it had been done by someone who knew what they were doing, I would have been more strongly in favor of retaining it. And if we're going to be rehabilitating the door, we're not going to be able to make it look pretty. It wasn't pretty to begin with when they made these modifications. So just be aware of that when we, whatever your decision is, we will follow your guidance. But no guarantees as to the quality of the final appearance of the rehabilitated door.
It's it's really unstable, just the way it was constructed. There's really no door frame per se for that man door. It's just some 1x wood members along the sides that are attached to the stiles of the large door. Anyway, it's just pretty marginal, to say the least, which is why we thought that's why we provided 2 options in our documents.
Yeah.
Because we thought the other option would be to just return that door to how it appeared originally. So, yeah, and Jared's going to show you, on A4, we did show 2 options for your review. And also, I don't know, Jared, did you get any input from Sites and Facilities?
No, I have not received input from Sites and Facilities.
Okay, because I'm sure they would like to weigh in on this.
Yeah. Jared, did you get a chance to go out and actually look at the door?
From the exterior, yes.
Yeah, it's a crude dude. That's all I can say. So
if I may, I did notice that we do have a hand raised on Zoom. I just want to make sure that this is the public hearing portion. It's labeled as L. Dean Clark.
Oh, yeah.
A comment?
I think
he's muted. He's
right
muted.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Dean, we worked with Dean a couple of years ago. His father left money to do work on this building. I think Dean can explain this further, but we did do an assessment of this building a couple of years ago. And then another assessment was done back in 2010 by Craig Abrahamson. So I know Dean's very interested in seeing this work be done on the building, but I'd love to get his input too. Are you there, Dean?
He appears to be unmuted now. Okay.
So I guess since we don't have Dean, questions for the Haynes or for Jared on this from the HPRC?
I have a question. So when I look at the Secretary of Interior guidelines, they state that if you have to replace it because the severity of deterioration is such, you need to match the old design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and when possible, materials. My question is, you're making a comment about that if you use the materials, like the materials used, could you not use material, like these look like pretty basic materials. Are you able to use better quality materials of the same style and structure and utilizing paint, make this look, because I'm going to be honest, I actually like the hose door with the west door with the man door in it. I mean, it's not visually symmetrical, which usually bothers me, but to me, this suggests that the hose company that was volunteered for this hose house decided they needed a man door and they were just going to do it. Even though initially it looks like the city commissioned this to look like the Bryan house. So are there not ways to get similar materials and maybe not use an angle to, or, the 2x4 to hold things up in a way that is structurally sound? Because it looks like, from what you're saying, you're going to have to replace the west door anyway because it's warped. Or did I read that wrong?
I think that's
Yeah.
correct. I
Yeah.
don't think very much of it's going to remain by the time they start pulling it apart, and there's lots of warped members and,
Yeah, we'll have to reconstruct it,
yeah.
really.
So if we reconstructed it, if you used a door that was of the similar time frame, because I looked at the door, I have similar doors in my house, which was built in 1900. Could we find a door that is similar to that, of the similar time frame or age, or maybe distressed look? Because I think that door, it's an interesting piece of the hose house history.
Sure, yeah. We do know door and window contractors that we've worked with that do beautiful work, and they could easily duplicate that door. So that's not really an issue. They could duplicate all the trim, the panels.
Mhm.
I think what we were concerned about is just the way it's attached to the larger west door, and it's kind of an unstable condition right now, but
Oh, it looks unstable. I agree with you, like just from your pictures. And I went over and looked at the hose house itself, and that is rickety as can be. But if you're going to rebuild the whole door, would you not be able to rebuild the man door with better quality, more stable materials, and making sure that that west side door is stable for opening and closing?
we might have to modify a few of the details, but because basically that door is not really hinged securely to the large door. So, I guess we'll have to just do the best we can. But yeah, we would want to replace in kind where appropriate.
If you want to be historically accurate, you try to reconstruct it exactly as it is now, right? So you're not creating a false history. So
Well, I don't think you're creating a false history, though, if you have to rehab it to the point so that it can be utilized, because that's also part of the Secretary of Interior guidelines, is being able to utilize the structure.
right.
If
No,
the
I'm
structure
saying,
is serious, so you can't use it.
right. I'm talking about changing the details of how it was fabricated, how it was, because it was just they kind of just went in there and hacked it up, and it's the details are pretty crude. So if we're going to be duplicating the existing condition to be historically accurate, it'll continue to be crude, but it'll be accurate, right? It'll be historically accurate. So it's a tricky thing, the reason all that plywood and all that stuff is scabbed on the backside is because when they cut the door open, they cut the door apart, it lost all of its structural integrity. So they just kind of, slapped on this stuff until it stopped being rickety, but it never was a good, a well thought out modification to the door to begin with. By the way, I was reading the history, and they said that this hose house stopped being used as a hose house in 1929 after the city purchased like a fire truck. And so from that point, from 1929 on, it was used. I know they said it was used as a polling place up until 1941, and I'm assuming it was probably used for like a storage building or something like that. So that door was probably added sometime after 1929 would be my guess. I don't have any, there's no history of when that was done.
Yeah, we were trying to find out when that door was added. And in fact, I contacted Dean Clark, but there's just no documentation of when it was added.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're just wanting you to know that it's pretty
It's rough.
It's very marginal, and we're gonna have to talk to the city about it, because I don't know if it's gonna become a maintenance issue. It's certainly really not functional right now. In fact, you can't even open the door. So
Well, the other reason I ask, though, is because we have in this committee voted on things that I've thought, from a structural standpoint, needed to just be replaced. And the tone of the committee was that, well, you can just replace it and that's okay. So I think if we replace this to a way that brings it back to structural integrity, it doesn't have to be horribly ugly. I mean, I don't know. I see a disconnect in some of the other decisions that we've made on this committee.
Can I-
Um,
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I think Rick is here at the meeting, but he is an attendee, not a panelist. Jared, do you see him? Can you let him in?
Is his name?
Gina
under-
Wells?
Gina Wells, yes.
No, we can improve.
Promoting to panel. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
And make it work.
And while I have the floor, I guess because we don't know when that was added, I just can't see that we would remove that door. Also, it is part of the description in the National Register nomination. And so it is a documented part of the history of that building. To me, it seems like removing that is not the right decision.
Okay, that's why we
Well-
showed you two options.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we can try to make it more structurally stable. But it won't look like as it looks today. So it's not going to be a, reconstruction of what's actually there right now. It's going to be a rehabilitation.
We'll need to reinforce the backside, probably with some steel straps of some sort, if we want to get rid of that plywood at the top and that 2x6 vertical on the interior.
Yeah.
The things we'll need to do to reinforce it will be occurring on the interior side, so you won't see it from the front. At the bottom, at the sill of that man door, the only thing that's holding that door together is a 2" by 2" by 1/8". I think it's an 1/8, whatever it is, whatever
Yeah.
size it is. Maybe it's 2.5 by 2.5. But it's a steel angle, and with the vertical leg of the angle completely cut out where the door is. So basically, you have like a steel bar at the bottom holding this door together, where it used to have a 2x10 piece of wood that was,
You're talking about the
mortise and
bottom rail.
tenoned into the other wood pieces. This is just like a 2" flat bar. So it's going to be flimsy. It was flimsy when it was built, and I'm sure that we're not going to be able to make it any stiffer. It is what it is. So we just
But are you replacing the west side door? Like, is that your goal, is to replace the entire west side door regardless of which
we'll
option?
probably have to, because
Yeah.
it's in such deteriorated condition. I think we can ask the contractor to reuse as much original material as possible, but we really can't guarantee that it's going to be stable based on.
So what kind of stability would we be looking at if you did the doors in the other option, which look like the Bryan House doors?
They'd be perfectly stable. They'd be as they were originally built.
Because they've got, the stiles and the rails are all tied together.
Yeah, they're all mortise and tenon together. This
Right.
thing's just got like a flat 2" steel bar at the bottom holding the.
So you're
holding-
saying you would rebuild it with the 2" steel thing at the bottom?
Possibly, yeah.
Well, that's the way it was. That's the way it works, right?
Yeah.
There's no other, I don't know any other way you can make this thing work with that door carved into the original wood door.
Because you basically have to tie the west and east styles of the larger door together to retain that door opening.
Right, and this door, obviously, if there's a man door inside the other door, the lower stile is no longer continuous. The lower rail is no longer continuous, and there's just that that steel angle that's holding the two pieces
Right.
together.
Which was
So-
not a bad solution, really, for
I mean,
tying the two sides together.
There's nothing else they could do unless they
Right.
wanted to keep a vertical part of that wood, have a step up over the
Right, we don't
rail.
want to do that.
But anyway, I guess what we're saying is, if we can reconstruct it the way it was, the way they did it, no guarantees as to how functional it's going to be, because I suspect it was kind of rickety when it was done, and there's a good chance it'll be rickety when it's rehabilitated.
And maybe it's not necessary to make that man door be functional. Maybe, it can maybe that entire west leaf will always be opened and closed.
Right. If you want just the appearance of the man door, it could all be tied together and be much more stable, as
Yeah.
long as you don't worry about
The door being
the man door being operable.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you could just- if
that
you
was
could just
my,
have- Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that was my question. Does it actually have to be functional other than just have the appearance of being a man door? Because
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know that anybody ever really intends to use it as a man door. I don't know the purpose of ever not opening that whole door in its entirety.
Right. If that's the
so-
case, if you don't care about functionality, we can make that thing stiff and it'll work just fine.
And it'll look just like it does on the outside,
Yep.
only with, replacement in-kind materials. So, yeah,
Do we, sorry,
no, go
Place
ahead.
where you can
Well,
enter it
it's-
from another section?
I'm sorry.
Is there a place that you can enter it from another area?
Sure, you just open the large door, the original
Yeah.
large door, either side. Well, actually, one side would be fixed, the other side would be operable, and then there'd be like a floor bolt that would allow you to open both together.
And that's the way it was set up originally. We were looking at the hardware, and actually the west leaf that has the man door in it, that was originally the fixed door.
Yep.
You can
Yeah, that's
see
the
the
fixed.
pole at the top of the door.
Yeah,
And then the east leaf was the operable door. So, yeah, we can reconstruct those doors, the man door, so it's no longer operable, but it will still look the same on the outside. And that would actually allow us to stabilize that door.
Mhm.
And we could clean it up on the back.
Mhm.
do we need to run this through the city? I mean, I know purposes could be potential storage for city materials or museum, but I guess it's kind of hard to make that decision. I find it hard to make that decision because I would rather see it look like it does and have that man door be inoperable, because why do we need it? But I also don't know what the purpose of the building is going to be.
Right.
Maybe Jared can address that.
That's a great question. I'm not certain also what the city intends to utilize the building for, but it is my opinion that it would not take much more effort to open the larger door, and that you're still keeping the functionality of the building itself, whether the man door opened or just it was there as decoration and both doors open. You still are allowed for the same amount of ingress and egress if the two larger doors opened.
Yeah.
Well, and also if we go and put the original door in without the man door, right away, you don't have a man door that opens. So we're kind of eliminating that option either way.
That's true.
Correct.
And yeah, that's right. And so,
I don't think, I agree that I don't think it necessarily needs to be operable. I'm looking more at the visual, what you
Mhm.
see when you go by the hose house.
Now we can improve the stability of that door if it's not operable.
I think that's the catch, is that the only way to keep it operational is to keep the structurally sound, that it's going to open up without, the door, getting, some kind of an off kilter part to it where it's going to drag on the concrete as it opens or closes. So keeping it structurally sound is probably more important than having an operational man door in my mind. But I think having it look like it does now, because it's looked that way for probably at least 50, 60 years, is kind of what I think is important too. So that's kind of what I would say is important. So
It seems to me that we really need to know what the function of the building is going to do before we actually decide if that can be inoperable or operable. If they're going to use it as a museum, would we not need to make sure the back looks pretty? And because I know if I'm going to go into a museum, I don't want to see the back of that door like that. And I don't want to see it just, kind of, I'm going to say slapped together, but that's not really what I mean, because I don't have a better word. But I would like it to look
Just slap
like it
together.
look like it would have looked back then when they made it.
I
Whether the
think-
door
I think
opens
it
or
does.
not.
I think it does look the way it looked when they made it. I think they put that plywood on there when they cut that door opening in there. I think they had to do it immediately
Yeah.
because the thing just lost all its structural integrity. So I think it looks like they added that 2x6 vertical, but that plywood at the top, that's kind of what they're using to basically act as kind of like
Tie it together.
yeah, it's kind of like this. It's a cantilever that's supporting the door from the top, and all the stuff down below is hanging off of it. I think they really needed that for the structural, beef to hold the man door in place.
Yeah.
So was that door operable at one time? Did they actually use it?
The man door?
It
Oh
looks
yeah,
like
oh
it
yeah,
was,
sure.
yeah,
Yep, that's
Patty.
why they did it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just, I don't know how long it was used because it just is so poorly done,
Right.
so.
And if we keep the man door, we're probably going to have to do something that looks a lot like what it looks like now, just to make it stiff enough to hold together as
If you plan to repaint it and clean it up, that's going to clean up some of that ratty looking business on the backside.
You won't see the
It's gonna
panels
take a lot of paint,
at the top. Structural paint.
coats and coats.
Jared, would Andy want to weigh in on this about whether this door is going to be needed to be functional in the future, this man door?
I can.
Jared, sorry, if I may. Sorry, Commissioner, I think you might have, and I'll let Jared answer that too, but you might have a couple of procedural sort of pathways here. I sort of hear maybe the majority of the group leaning towards perhaps maintaining the appearance of that man door, if not the functionality or operability of it, and that maybe is the group's consensus, or you might be headed there in terms of issuing an approval tonight, that would be your preference. If you truly want the input of the city before you make a decision, we could certainly continue this. So we could get Jared and Diane and I and staff could get you the input from city, whether it's City Administrator Marsh or council. We could certainly bring that back to you if that is important for you to know before you make a decision. If you as a group really strongly think that, again, maintaining the appearance of that man door is your preference and would be your druthers at the expense of its functionality, I think you could issue approval tonight with the condition of directing staff to ensure that the inoperability of that man door feature is acceptable to the city's future plans for the property. And if we go back to council and check that box and that's acceptable, then you're done with the issue. But if City Administrator Marsh or council say, no, we really want that to be operable or something different, we could bring it back to you. So I think you have at least two options, but I didn't mean to cut Jared off. If you wanted to opine as well, Jared.
No, that's actually kind of where I was hoping to lead to as well, because I'm not 100% certain as to whether the council or staff besides myself has a opinion as to the functionality of that door. I think from what I've heard, it was more about the appearance, but I do not know that there's something more there.
And this staff report did go through our city administrator, correct? So he has seen the two different options.
He has been on vacation for some time, so
Okay.
he has not had a chance to really weigh in, but it did go to his desk. Yes.
Okay. I have one other question about, because on one of the elevations, the elevation where you show leaving the man door in, you talk about using like a polycarbonate, replacing that piece of plywood with laminated glass or polycarbonate. Could you do that even if you make that part of one big door and it's inoperable? Could you still leave that as a window?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you
Yeah.
could conceivably, if say we turn that into a museum you could conceivably have that as a window and never open the door and see the backside of that door. I mean, you don't walk in the other hose houses.
Yeah, you still could open the large doors, of which that smaller door is part of. You could both open those completely if they want to park a hose cart or something like that inside.
But you make a good point, Megan. Yes, we did want to put glass or something back in that opening because right now it's just covered with plywood. And we had checked with Andy about, what material would be best. I know he was worried about vandalism, and that's why we were calling for laminated or polycarbonate. But you're right, Megan, that would be an opportunity for people to be able to view the interior of that hose house with that glass in the door. So, good point.
Do we have any more questions, discussions? Are we ready to, is the commission ready to either make a motion or continue this? I would say we could make a motion tonight, but I'd want to hear what everyone else would say. And before we move on, we have to ask for public comment, but does the commission have any more questions about this project?
No.
No.
Well, I have a question, but it's not really about the front. The side windows, are they transparent?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, those windows will be similar to what you see at the Brian Hose house.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not this camera.
Before we close the public portion, do we have any public comment tonight? Nope. Okay. Then I will close the public portion of this part of the hearing at 6:03 to turn it over to the commission to discuss and decide how to proceed. I think we could make, I think that we could make the motion to proceed with rehabilitating, leaving the man door, but not operable. You'd have to word that better, but what does the rest of the commissioners think about that?
I would agree with that, dependent on further information from the city, because I'd hate for us to go through all this and then the city say, no, we need that door. I would like this to be smoothly done so the city could get busy on working on it if that's on their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I don't think there's any way they're going to open those doors, even if they make a museum out of it, because they cannot put somebody up there to tend the museum. So if anything, glass is what's going to work.
I think
because
so.
if they're going to put a hose cart in there, it's going to be that somebody's going to look at it through glass. They're not going to have the doors open so people can walk inside and touch it, because they just don't have staff that can be up there to monitor to make sure nobody's doing anything to it. So I think that's the best solution, is just put the motion forward. And then if they want to replace it with glass, that's optional too. So I think that's the best of all worlds, but just leave it up to the city to decide what the final construction should be. But I think that's fine, what you said.
Okay. So I move, Patty, did you have anything before I jump in and do that?
No, I just really think we need to know what they're going to use it for before we finalize our decision. So this motion would cover that.
Okay. So I move that we approve the rehabilitation of the West End Hose House with keeping the man door, knowing that it will be inoperable, pending approval by city council and or city administrator, depending on their proposed use.
I think that covers it. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Carmen, did that cover it?
Absolutely, I think so. And so just to verify, commission, if we do get some sort of disagreement or alternative view from the council, we'll come back to you. And maybe Jared will make a note, and Diane, to even if council and the city agrees that this is a good plan, we'll communicate that back to you. But just as a communication, if everything's all good, and if it's not all good, we'll obviously have something like this again. But we as staff will get back to you either way, Commission.
Great, thank you. And can we put in there that we would prefer to see some kind of transparent window in that door, or do we not need to include that tonight?
If you like, you bet.
I mean, we have already called for that on the
Okay.
drawing, so.
Okay.
Okay. Then I think that's covered. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So I think we are, well, let me pull the agenda back up. I think we're just at, do we have any further public comment tonight? Anything else that we need to cover before we adjourn? When is our next meeting?
Next month.
Oh, well, thanks. I was looking specifics.
It would be
Mm,
the 21st, I believe.
Okay, so then we will have our next HPRC meeting on Tuesday, September 21st, and I adjourn this meeting at 6:07 p.m.
Sorry, I
Thank
was
you.
late. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will work on the technical challenges for next meeting. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Jared.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
good night.
Good
Getting
night.
Zoom to finally work.